name is Meg Kabotie Adakai, and welcome to the second Saturday steam. I'll be taking you through the Rio de Flag Canyon and talking about some of the plants in this canyon. I think we had advertised this as an ethnobotany talk. So ethnobotany is basically how plants can be used by either people of today or prehistoric people, and so that's kind of what we'll be focusing on as we go through the canyon. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're just starting at the very beginning of the canyon, and we are surrounded by our beautiful museum area. Up here we have Gamble oak and we have Ponderosa pine, and a lot of times oak will grow underneath the pine trees just because birds commonly roost in the trees and then they'll drop the seeds down. So we'll see that as kind of a recurring theme throughout the canyon, as smaller plants growing underneath the ponderosas. Back in the day, when Flagstaff was a lumber town, settlers thought that there were two different types of ponderosa, and because when Ponderosa pine are small, they have black trunks, and these are called or referred to as blackjacks. And as they get older and more mature, their trunks turn kind of like a golden yellowish color, and I'll show you a better example of this in a few minutes. And at that point they're called yellow bellies, and so they used to think they were two different species of trees, but it's just different stages in the growth of the ponderosa. Over to our right, we have canyon grape, and this is a wild grape that grows here in Arizona, and all of the pieces of this plant can be used. So this particular plant does not have any fruit on it right now, but it usually does fruit right now down in Oak Creek Canyon. It's fruiting, and the grapes are like a pretty kind of blackish color. When they're done, they have really big seeds in them, but they're sweet and tasty. And the leaves and the stems can also be eaten. They can also be chewed up and used as a poultice for wounds. And so that's mainly what that is used for. And I think these probably are not fruiting this year, maybe just because at the higher elevations it's probably a little bit harder to fruit. Right here is blue Grama grass. You know, actually, I think this one is a different kind. This is the blue Grama grass right here, and it's a native grass, and it's very important because it's more drought resistant and fire resistant than some of the other grasses that have been introduced here. And if we see any of those grasses, I will point them out. So when you're on your hike, make sure you just admire these kind of grasses and don't disturb them. So this grass here is a non-native grass called cheatgrass, and this grass is definitely not our friend here. So if you're on your hike and you want to pull this, this is a good grass to pull, and it's called cheatgrass because it comes up very early in the year before a lot of the other grass comes up, and then it grows very fast and it dries out and dies very fast. So this is one of the prime culprits when fires start, and contributes to pretty devastating fires. So we want to get rid of this as much as possible. As I was saying before, these ponderosa right here are referred to as yellow belly ponderosa pine trees because they are more mature. And if we were here in person, and when you come in person, I always encourage people to take a whiff because it smells really delicious. Some people say it smells like vanilla, other people say it smells like butterscotch, but when you come and visit, be sure to do that. This right here is called wax currant, And right now, I'll probably show you guys a little bit better berries, but they produce these kind of berries. They're super dry, and this is a very tiny version. I'm sure when we go down in the canyon we'll find some more, and if there's a bigger one I'll show you. But they flower in the spring, little white or pink flowers, and then they make these berries, and these berries are edible. To me they taste kind of like a dry blueberry, but I have not experienced this myself. I have heard though that if you eat too many, it acts as an emetic to help you throw up. But all my childhood I picked them, and we make jams out of them and things like that, and so I've never had that experience myself. But the wood can also be put through a little loop, and was used by prehistoric people to make things like arrows or baskets or cradle boards. And oh, and one thing I had wanted to also say about the Ponderosa Pine that I thought was interesting, and I just learned this in the last few years, was that as Ponderosa Pine trees get bigger and older, the lower branches will die and fall off. So there's an example of one of the lower branches that dies and falls off. And the reason that happens is to make the tree more fire resistant. So historically, in healthy Ponderosa pine forests, we would find a lot of these yellow belly guys, and they are spread out much farther than what we see sometimes today in unhealthy Ponderosa pine forests. So the two comparisons are there's a type of forest called a dog hair thicket that's indicative of a very unhealthy forest, and that is when there are lots of tiny little blackjack Ponderosa pine trees that are all growing so close together that it looks like dog hair, which is where it gets its name. And these trees and that kind of thicket is very, very susceptible to wildfire. And forestry students have been studying this, especially at Northern Arizona for a long time, Northern Arizona University, and they think that these dog hair thickets came about because of human interference and because of logging, cutting down so many trees at once, and then also because of fire suppression. So fire in our ecosystem is a natural healthy part, and for a long time humans just stamped out any fire, and that created an issue because all the trees were able to grow instead of some of them getting consumed by lower burning fires, low grade fires, and that's what the big guys are more resistant to. So in a healthy ecosystem, we have fire as a part of it, and the fires come through and kind of clear things out and kill some of the smaller trees that would kind of choke the forest, and then the branches of the bigger guys fall off so that when a fire comes, this thick bark is able to protect the tree and it's able to survive the forest fire. So that's kind of something interesting to know about the ponderosas. We'll head on this way. These are tiny little versions of a rose hip, and when we go down into the canyon, I'll show you bigger versions of them, but they produce a fruit that is used in tea. So this is like a canyon rose, and these actually right here are called galls, and they're made by insects. Well, it's kind of like a combination of insect and plant. So certain insects will lay their eggs, and then the plant actually kind of makes this tumor-like thing, but there are insect eggs in it, and then you can see where the insect came out, which is kind of neat. One of the cool things about the Museum of Northern Arizona is that it is a science and art museum, and so we have all kinds of really interesting scientists who have come through and worked at the museum, and I've been really fortunate to be able to work with a lot of them. And Gary Alpert is always teaching me cool things. He's one of our entomologists here at the museum, and he was the one that taught me about galls. And okay, so let's keep heading down this way. Oh wow, let me just show you this. look at how many galls are on this guy. So this is the same plant we just looked at, but I've never really seen so many galls in one area, so that's kind of neat. And so now I guess I will draw your attention to this dead log. This is kind of not an ethnobotany thing, but just more of a just to talk about dead wood and how it is important to canyons and ecosystems. And so before this guy fell down, it would have been known as a snag, and snags are just dead trees, but they provide really important habitat for lots of little critters. And when they fall down, the wood starts to go back to the earth, and it makes rich soil for our plants to grow in. So I always like to crush this when I want to feel strong. I'll bring your attention right here to this. This is prickly pear, and this is a native cactus. And these right now, these are prickly pear fruit, and they are actually very delicious. And they are made into jams, and they've been eaten for a long time by prehistoric people and people, modern day people. Down close to Sedona and Camp Verde, these guys grow much bigger. I'm actually really surprised to see this fruit right here that is pretty big and juicy for how high of an elevation. But if you do pick these, each of these little fuzzy things that I'm brushing off, they have tiny hair-like little needles in them, so just be super careful if you choose to pick some of these, harvest them. And sometimes you can brush them off the way I'm doing right now, but other times they're a lot more stubborn. So
don't people sometimes burn them off?
Yeah, I think people do burn them off. I have not done that, but I have heard of that being done. There's also a lot of tiny little hair-like needles around the edge, so I'm not going to touch that because it's going to irritate me. But
can it be eaten raw, or
yes, yep, it can be eaten raw or cooked, and the skin is just kind of really easy to peel off. And actually, while I'm doing this, it just looks so delicious that I'm probably going to eat it myself. But so we'll do that, and while I'm peeling it, this is being very good for me. Usually it doesn't go this smooth. Usually it's like a lot of pain and takes a minute to get all the needles out of you. But I guess this has been a good year for these cacti. And one thing I usually mention when we're coming down here is that this is more of like the south-facing part of the canyon, and so we see plants that like the dry heat a little bit more on this side. So let's see, this is almost peeled, and the cactus fruit is kind of sticky almost. You can see it's kind of like okra, and there's a lot of seeds in it that are kind of hard, like stones, tiny little stones. So so good. And then where did it go? Okay, so these are the seeds, and you can see that it's kind of sticky. But these seeds, you can chew them up and eat them. It's kind of like chewing on rocks a little bit, but you can swallow them and it doesn't hurt you. And it's really good. I really love cactus fruit, so I'm lucky that I got a little treat. Usually they're not fruiting this well.
Somebody had a question about the galls and whether they hurt the plants.
I think so. I mean, I think like the one that we just saw that had so many of them, I think it can hurt the plant because it's taking resources away from the plant itself. But I've never seen galls kill a plant. So I think it's kind of like a symbiotic kind of thing, you know. Well, I guess not symbiotic, more parasitic, but it's not something that's so parasitic that it kills the host. And galls, they are found on all kinds of woody bushes and things. So if you ever get a chance to visit Larry Stevens' lab across the street, he'll show you all different types of galls from different types of plants. All right. And as I was talking before about the oak, we're going to pass a few more oak right here. And this is known as gamble oak, and the wood can be used in the same way as the wax currant that I talked about earlier. It can be used in baskets or cradle boards or arrows for prehistoric people. And then the leaves of the oak, I believe, can be used as a poultice for poison ivy, which is really cool. And yeah, I got a couple of pokies in me, just one or two. The nuts, the acorns, can be eaten without having to leach them. So one thing I didn't know about a lot of nuts is that you have to put certain nuts in water to get out. I want to say it's like arsenic, some kind of unsavory thing in the nuts that we don't want in our system. So, but these gamble oak make acorns that you do not have to leach in that way. So that's good, and it was an important food source for prehistoric people. And we're gonna start heading down into the canyon. When you come, just always watch your step. And I will also really quick talk about the lichen. So this green stuff on the rocks is called lichen, and it's actually a symbiotic relationship between fungi and algae. And yeah, and yeast. And yeast. Okay, see? The three-way, which I did not actually know until just this moment. So thank goodness our camera woman is a scientist as well. And I know the docents, they tell some kind of funny story about, I think they call him Freddy Fungus took a lichen to Alice Algae. And so that's kind of a funny little saying that you can remember. And I believe this orange one is a different kind of lichen. And so it's really pretty to see on the rocks. And so try not to disturb it when you're going on the rocks, because it's a couple of living organisms together.
Somebody thinks it might be tannins that you leach from them.
Tannins, yes, that is right, tannins. I don't know why I said arsenic. I think I was thinking about down south and water quality near Montezuma Well and all of that. All right, well, good thing we're all in this together. So we have more of the canyon grape to your right, and down here at the bottom of the canyon we have Arroyo Willow. Arroyo means canyon in Spanish. It can also be called canyon willow, and it's also known as coyote willow, I believe. So a couple of really neat things about the willow down here is, one, it will show you where water is pretty close to the surface, where the water table is high, because it only grows in areas with water. Down in this area we have a stream that runs not all year long, but most of the year. And one of the cool things prehistoric people used this willow for is it contains salicylic acid. And salicylic acid is the main ingredient, I believe, in aspirin. And so it was taken by prehistoric people as a form of aspirin to help with aches and pains. And one thing that I actually learned about a year ago was that people, modern day growers in permaculture settings, use this as a rooting hormone liquid mixture. So we had Lillian Hill from Hopi-Tuskwa Permaculture come out and teach us how to do that. And it's actually really, really simple. You just take a bucket of water you take a small clipping, maybe just like from here to the top, and then you cut it into about 1-inch pieces, and then you just let it sit in the water for I don't know, maybe 24 hours, and then it takes out the salicylic acid. And then there's one other type of acid, and it's a super hard name for me. Let me see if I can look it up. I had it written down and I don't remember how to say it. It is salicylic acid and indolabutric acid, I think is how you say it. And those two acids, they stimulate root growth. So if you're trying to get something to root, you just put it in there, and it's like a natural rooting hormone liquid. So that's really neat. You don't have to purchase that. Down here are some of the rose hips. We had showed you the plant that had the galls on it, and these are the actual rose hips. They look a little bit sad and dried out right now, but those are used in tea, and they have a very high vitamin C count. So if you're ever sick, you want to just boil yourself some rose hip tea, which is really, really good. Okay, then we're gonna head on this way. This canyon is a super beautiful and very accessible place. I always like to take my kiddos here, and it's a really short hike, so but it's a nice way to get away. The Museum of Northern Arizona, not a lot of people know, is on a large, vast amount of land. How many acres is it?
200 acres.
200 acres. So I think sometimes when people think about the Museum of Northern Arizona, they just think about the building, and they're surprised to know how many acres we have of this really beautiful natural forested area. And so I'm very grateful that we have this. And I think part of the museum's appeal is our outdoor resources, really. I mean, we have a really beautiful Colton Community Garden across the street. If you haven't checked that out, go check it out. It's, I think, just the outdoor area and space we have is one of our greatest educational tools here. Okay, so we're kind of going through a lot of the same plants that we just learned about. So I'm just going to walk a little bit quickly through here. Usually on this right side we have poison ivy, and it looks like it's quite a bit more under control than it has been in the past, which is good for us. But this is what it looks like. So there's a little, and there's a little baby lizard. Oh, hey, okay, yep, he ran away. Oh, he's right over there. I don't know if y'all can see him. He's a little too fast for us, I guess. But so there's a little rhyme that goes, leaves of 3, let it be. And so you see the way the poison ivy is growing in clumps of 3 leaves. 3 leaves, 3 leaves, 3 leaves. And poison ivy can look a little bit different depending on where it grows. Sometimes it's quite a bit greener and shinier than that. And then sometimes in the fall, it turns kind of a reddish color, and it can have berries on it. So like up here, the poison ivy is a little bit more green and a little bit more shiny than the poison ivy we just saw. And I think, though, poison ivy sometimes gets a bad rap. It's not the worst thing in the world. I know, well, I guess I'm saying that as a person who doesn't react very much to it, but I take a lot of kiddos through the canyons in the summertime here at the Discovery Camps, and sometimes there's a kid that's like, I touched poison ivy, I'm gonna die. But usually if you brush it, it's not gonna hurt you immediately. I mean, I think sometimes people get pretty severe reactions with unknowingly like going through a whole patch and getting exposed for a long time, but it's not like you touch it and you instantly get a skin reaction, at least for most people. Okay, so Oh, we have quite a bit more poison ivy over on this side. And this is a little bit more in a shady spot, and so you can see how it's a little bit shinier and a little bit more thriving, I'd say. We can see some more of these galls up here from on the canyon rose bush.
There's a question about whether there's poison oak in the area.
I think there is, but I don't know what it looks like. So one of the cool things that every time I do one of these talks, I get questions that I don't know the answer to, and then I get to learn it, and we're all helping each other learn that way. So
I haven't had anybody mention poison oak for this area.
Okay. Okay.
When I've been here with Dan, she hasn't mentioned it either.
Okay. So maybe tentative no. All right. So we're gonna get up here, and I'm gonna show you guys a couple of different plants and then a cool little petroglyph, actually. So just enjoying the beautiful day. You know, I did not know this until yesterday, but I've been so stumped at why our skies are not clear and blue and pristine as usual, and I thought, is there a forest fire here? Because it doesn't smell like it, but it looks like it in the sky. And then I learned that our skies are so murky right now because of the forest fires in California, and that's just very devastating and sad because, you know, it's so far away, but our skies are still kind of murky because of it. So let's all do our part to protect our forests. Okay, I'm gonna have us go off the trail up this way for a minute, and I'll show you guys a cool little petroglyph. So Kelly Hayes Gilpin is our resident anthropologist, archaeologist here, and she showed one of the front desk people who was down on a hike with me once, and they showed me. So if you can see this, it's kind of like a wavy white line, and I think Kelly had thought that it was a petroglyph of a snake, but it's kind of hard to tell, and I always ask people what they think it might be, and I've had suggestions of maybe it's lightning or maybe it's like a water design, because also underneath here, as you can see, there's sort of a little spring, and the water's not moving quickly, but it is moving, so that might be part of why this was an important place to put a little petroglyph.
Can you talk for a moment about what the practices are around petroglyphs and what people should...
So we definitely want to protect them and preserve them. When we see petroglyphs, we don't want to touch them, and we definitely don't want to, you know, add any of our own modern day art to it, because this is a piece of precious history, and so we just want to be super respectful of it and just enjoy it and leave it so that other people in the future can enjoy it also. Okay. Alrighty, and you know, I am still learning about these flowers over here, so if anyone who's watching knows what these flowers are, please let me know, because I'm, like I said, I'm always trying to add to what I know and learn about it. So, and we have a little nibbled on rose hip, it looks like. So they get kind of smushed up as they get older. But we're going to come back down and get back on the trail. There's a lot of lizards today. Okay, so this plant right here, these two plants are a type of horsetail, and so the skinnier kind right here is known as horsetail, and this one right here is a type of horsetail that's known as scouring rush, and it's also sometimes known as snakeweed, because at the very top there are little growths that look like a snake's tail almost. And these were kind of cool. These are cool because They're known as living fossils, sometimes people call them, because these are some of the oldest plants that are still alive. They lived way back in the Mesozoic era, and they were huge. So I think I've heard that there were like huge forests of these during the Mesozoic era. And one of the really cool things about these is they have silica, which is like glass, in their cells. So when you come down to the canyon, you can just feel them, and you can definitely feel that there's like something in there. It's like kind of grainy, kind of sandy. And pioneers actually used to use these to scrub their pots and pans, and so that's why it's sometimes known as scouring rush, because it works just as well as steel wool for cleaning things up because of the glass silica in the cells. All right, so we're going to go across. Right here is the Rio de Flag, and you can see that there's still some water in there, but it's pretty stagnant right now because we had a pretty pitiful monsoon season. And usually though, this is running in the spring, and so runs basically from the snow melt. And I do a spring break camp sometimes with the Museum of Northern Arizona, and so during spring break camp, this is like a raging river, and sometimes kids will try to cross it and fall in, and then we have to change the clothes. But so it's fun, and it's really neat to see the way the canyon changes throughout the seasons. And there's really cool and beautiful things for all seasons. Oh, and then, okay, let's take a look at this. This is actually hops. So the hops that you make beer out of. And it is fruiting. And I was calling all my friends today trying to ask if this was a native hops, and I think the answer is yes. So that's really neat. And that was one of the questions I had last time that I didn't know the answer to, but now I know. And we have some of this growing in the Colton Community Garden, but it was planted. And so I was like, was this planted? And our consensus right now is that it was not. It's a native species. And right here there is a butterfly that I thought was dead because it was not moving at all, but I see it's I don't know the scientific name for it, but the little sucker, and it's like drinking right now, so I think it's still alive actually, but it looks like it might have, yep, see, it's alive, and it is, if you can, there it goes. So you can tell that the insects really like the hops, and there's a little bee in there too, so that's super cool. I've never really seen a butterfly stay still for that long, so it was like, it's my moment. All right, and then here's some more of the rose hips, and they're quite bountiful over on this side. And so this side of the canyon is more like the northish side, so it's where more of the cold liking plants and the more moisture liking plants grow, and it's quite a bit cooler on this side. Even right now, during the winter and spring, there's a lot of snow here that doesn't melt for quite a long time. And we'll head this way. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other plants that I talked about, that I haven't talked about yet, that I want to. Because I think most of the plants that continue on this trail are kind of things that we've already talked about. So I think that would probably conclude the talk. Thank you all for sitting with me and learning about the canyon, and I hope you all can come out and enjoy it in person. It's a beautiful place to be in, especially during this time when we're not able to spend as much time indoors together as we'd like. It's great to get outdoors. So if there's any questions, I'll try to answer those, and if not, thank you all so much.
I'll give them just a moment. Sometimes
Okay.
it takes a moment
Yeah.
for questions to come along.
Sure.
I'll give them a little bit of scenery.
Yeah. There's a lot of great wildlife that lives here too. In the spring, we often hear the northern flicker. It's that kind of bird that goes deet, 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 deet. And we see a lot of Abert squirrels down here, a lot of lizards, garter snakes, horned toads, mountain shorthorn toads. And there's actually been mountain lion tracks found here in the snow and mud before too, which is really cool.
Somebody saw a bear down here once.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. So this place is just amazing for its wildlife.
All right, well, there's a lot of thank yous and I don't see any questions, so I'll finish it up.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Oh, you know, one thing I did want to mention is we do have an app called Agents of Discovery that kiddos can download, and they walk through this canyon, and it sort of asks them questions, and it's sort of like a little game, almost like a Pokemon Go kind of thing. And Agents of Discovery is a program with a lot of different beautiful outdoor sites. So there's different Agents of Discovery sites all over the United States, and the museum is one. So if anyone wants to look that up, check it out. Thank you.